Drake, how long do you expect to be in Oregon?
Well, I live in Oregon, but I live in Bend, which is on the east side of the mountains.
Okay,
And I've been kind of on a little trip to the Oregon coast and where I used to go to school here in Corvallis at Oregon State. So
okay,
has good memories,
great. Well, that's nice that you're able to be back. Why I
Mhm.
thought you lived in San Francisco, I'm not sure, but
Mm,
now I've got it right.
yeah.
It's a nice boat you can take from Seattle up to Vancouver, I think.
Yes,
Mhm.
I always
yes, you
wanted to
did
do
that,
that
didn't
trip.
you? You didn't do that, or you did, Sarah?
No, but
Yeah.
I know we planned to at one point, but it didn't happen.
'Cause you went to the north end of the island and then took a
Yes, yes.
freighter down, didn't you?
Sorry.
You took a boat, what's it, were you on a freighter coming down?
No, just a
To,
kind of regular ferry boat. Yes, it
oh,
was really
nice.
nice.
Okay. Yes, that can be nice.
Yeah, down to north, the end of Vancouver Island. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, let's check if Jan is here. Jan, are you here now?
สวัสดีค่ะ Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. สวัสดีค่ะ Jan.
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
It sounds very clear. Yes.
Shall we start?
Let's start. So, Drake, I don't know if you have anything you would like to start with. You were asking a little bit about nimitta on the
Mm.
list, and I was talking about how what can be known now is actually always the nimitta of a reality, because, for example, the seeing consciousness falls away instantly, and what is known is the sign of the seeing itself, because the seeing itself cannot be the object. It has to be the replica, the image of seeing, and it cannot just be one seeing, many seeings before there is the nimitta of seeing, which can appear and can be known. But when there's understanding of seeing, understanding of the nimitta, of the characteristic of seeing, there's no thought or idea about, oh, this is nimitta and the seeing has fallen away. It's just that characteristic, the nature of seeing, which is known. And because of the nimitta of seeing which appears, it conditions the idea about the shapes, the forms, the ideas about people, something that sees or something that is seen. Without nimitta, there wouldn't be any memory, any idea of something experienced, people, things, and so on. But it's quite a subtle point, but it explains why any reality can appear, even though the reality itself has gone, even though panya cannot arise at a moment of seeing or when seeing itself is the object, but always by way of nimitta. Is there anything you would like to ask or have elaborated?
Sure.
Because it's a topic Ajahn is always very happy to talk about.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't clear, but are you suggesting then that if we're conscious of seeing something in front of us, that's a mind door process, but we still have the image of the object seen, but at that point it's there could be pleasant or unpleasant feeling if there was dosa or loba, and then the moha would be the delusion that misperceives that as an object worthy of attachment and craving.
Sarah, we can't hear you.
Yes, the visible object itself is gone. Many visible objects have been experienced and fallen away, but the sign of the visible object appears in the mind door. There cannot be any visible object itself experienced in the mind door because it can only be seen in the eye door process, but the image of the visible object appears and can be understood, and at each moment it is experienced. There is the memory of what has been seen at moments of seeing, the memory of the image at moments when the image appears, and this conditions the thinking about it, the thinking of something, this thinking of people, almost always with ignorance and often with wrong understanding and attachment. But that reality itself, that characteristic, can be known as just what is seen, different from the idea of the shape, the form, something there that is seen.
And I'm still not exactly clear why or what part of that process is a reality. Like, why is something designated an ultimate truth or a reality if it's a conditioned phenomenon, as opposed to like a thought or a concept?
The visible object itself is Paramattha-Dhamma, absolute reality. And the nimitta of the Paramattha-Dhamma is the nimitta of the Paramattha-Dhamma. So for all intents and purposes, it is Paramattha-Dhamma still that appears. But as soon as it's the thinking of a shape, thinking of something there that is seen, then it is thinking about an idea, a concept of what is seen, different from the Paramattha-Dhamma or the sign of the Paramattha-Dhamma, which appears the absolute reality just as it is.
And just to add a little bit to that, because you asked why is some things Paramattha Dhammas being conditioned, yet concepts not. Well, the difference, as I see it, is that the conditioned realities, as we call them, or phenomena, have a characteristic that can be directly known, directly experienced. Concepts do not have any such characteristic. They are the product of mental activity, product of thinking. So, for example, now you're looking at a screen or monitor of some kind. That couldn't happen without the experiencing of visible object. And then there's thinking about the visible object and many visible objects that have been experienced, and conceptualizing them as a monitor with the images of different people on it. And that conceptualizing is a kind of thinking. So the thinking is a reality. It has a characteristic, but the concepts that are conceived by the mind are not in the same category. They don't arise and fall away. They're not conditioned to arise and fall away. They don't have a characteristic that can be directly known. So that's one way of describing the difference. Yeah. So the conditioned realities, even though they can't arise without other conditions, but they can be directly known. They do have a reality, even for that very brief moment, even though they exist only briefly, yet they are real in that sense.
And
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, sorry. I appreciate you explaining that, but so the thinking, is that like vijnana or a sankhara, paramata,
And
Dhamma?
let's just keep it simple and say it's consciousness that thinks. So
Uh,
if we're talking about sense door and mind door experiences, it's, for example, eye consciousness that experiences visual object, it's ear consciousness that experiences sound, and it's mind door consciousness that thinks about the visible object or sound that has been experienced and conceptualizes those things in terms of a person speaking. And obviously the meaning of whatever is spoken is pure mental processing of the sounds that have already been experienced through the ear door by ear consciousness.
does the meaning have any ultimate reality? Like, how is it that like the Buddha could discern the difference between a wholesome and unwholesome, like Majjhimaya 19, and so that the thoughts of renunciation and goodwill are beneficial and incline the mind towards nibbana?
Well, because different kinds of consciousness or citta have different characteristics. So there are moments of consciousness that are kusala and moments that are akusala. And they don't have the same characteristic in the sense that one is accompanied by calmness, for example, the kusala ones, and the akusala ones are accompanied by restlessness, mental factors. So the mental factors accompanying the kusala citta and the akusala citta are different. And the resultant moments of consciousness, the moments of experiencing at the sense door object that impinges on the sense door, for example, they are different again. And there's a fourth class of moments of consciousness, kiriya, which is neither of those other three. So to answer your, it's always by understanding that these differences are known, and it's by understanding of some reality that is appearing at the present moment.
So you can discern the characteristic of kusala by calmness versus restlessness.
Well, that is one of the distinctive differences between the two. So if that calmness becomes the object of understanding, then it's not that it's possible to for anyone to know that difference. It has to be understanding which develops and then which takes the calmness factor or the restlessness factor or something else to know one from the other. But in terms of the development of insight, insight knows the essential characteristic of the moment of consciousness. And the essential characteristic of any moment of consciousness is to experience an object. So if we're talking about the difference between kusala citta and akusala citta, that is a kind of understanding, but it is not the same kind of understanding that accompanies moments of insight. Because that difference between the kusala and akusala citta can be known and was known outside the Buddha's dispensation, was known before the Buddha's enlightenment. That's how people of the Buddha's time were able to develop the highest jhanas. And they took this to be the highest state possible. And it was the Buddha who discovered that the characteristic of the essential characteristic of a reality the citta that sees, the citta that hears, for example, the citta that thinks, the kusala and akusala, as the reality is known as it is by different function, and also having the common characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta. And that information, that knowledge was not known outside the Buddha's teaching.
And so there's a knowledge that's like meaning, but it's something that's directly experienced rather than an idea that you remember and recall. Or
Yes, it is.
Last week, we distinguished between Paramatta Satya, which is the truth of what is real. So, for example, seeing that arises right now is Paramatta Satya, not the words, not the meaning, but the actual reality. Kindness at moments of when it arises is Paramatta Satya, different from just the idea about thoughts of renunciation or thoughts of this or that. Sammuti Satya is what is conventionally correct or true by the words. It's true that Anne's picture is different from Jonathan's, or that what is seen is the ocean, conventionally speaking. It's true by the meaning that thoughts of renunciation are kusala, but this is still Sammuti Satya. It's not the Paramatta Satya, the understanding of the nature of kindness at this moment, or generosity, or anger at this that appears right now, or hearing right now. So these are Paramatta Dhammas. What is Paramatta Satya? Different from the meaning or the conventional truth, no matter whether it's spoken by those who haven't had any understanding of the Buddhism, or those that have. When we think about the meaning of what is meant by nimitta, we learn about what it is, what it represents, but it's different from the moment of understanding the truth of what appears at this moment. So that understanding has to develop to get closer and closer to understand what life really is at this moment. And then it's not just thinking about the meaning of the words, but beginning to understand what appears now deeper and deeper.
And does that mean that each characteristic is known by its sign, by the nimitta?
Yes. Even when it's highly developed understanding that directly understands the rising and falling away of the sound that is heard, it's still the nimitta of sound that is directly understood. But it's like a perfect replica, or I give the analogy of photocopy or scan. It's the characteristic of the reality, but it has to appear by way of nimitta always.
And is nimitta always transmit the true versus like a wrong perception? So you could have like a perception of an object where you imbue it with a quality that it doesn't possess.
Right. So it can be nimitta of anything. So now we're talking about nimitta of realities, which may be understood or maybe not understood, may appear to ignorance and clinging as usual, or there may be, actually we live in the world of nimitta, so whatever appears is nimitta, like you say, of a rock or a person or anything. And then it's not the Paramatta Satya that appears, the absolute truth. I'm going to see if Ajahn would like to add more on these topics.
Did Buddha say anything before he talk about the truth to the monk? Listen carefully, monk. I'm going to say, see? So how subtle it is from enlightenment experience. Otherwise, how can there be any understanding of the very subtle moment right now? The truth of it, so subtle, it takes quite a long time to get used or acquainted to the nature of what is there as it is. That's why if there is no careful listening or considering, can there be the understanding of the subtle realities that is so very subtle? Otherwise, everyone can know it, the truth of it. But since it's so subtle, so now just begin to develop the understanding of the truth of the nature of reality, which is there now appearing, the truth of it so very deep. So now, can we think about, is there a reality which experience an object? We don't talk about anything else. Just consider what would be heard on and on and on about the truth of, is there the reality which experiences an object right now? See? Just one question, one by one question, to test how much understanding of what we have learned about what is there now. Now, is there a reality which experiences an object?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So now, is there the reality which does not experience an object and cannot experience any object at all?
No, not that I know of.
Is there any reality which cannot or does not experience any object at all, no matter what moment when it arises? Is there any reality?
I don't, as far as I know, Nibbana doesn't have a sign, or perception, but apparently it's known by Chitta.
We are talking about the nature, the reality which arises and experience the object. Is such one? You said yes. Another question.
Yeah.
Is there any reality which arises but cannot experience any object at all?
I'm not aware of that. I've never, a reality that can't experience an object. Like,
Consider now at a moment of seeing or a moment of hearing. Is there any reality that arises that doesn't experience anything?
I mean, I think even deep sleep, there's an experience of an object. What would
There's
be
always,
a reality?
there's always an experiencing, but what is experienced now at a moment of seeing? Because the seeing has to experience an object. So what is that object, and does that object experience anything?
Oh. I mean, if it's a Rupa object, Rupa is not supposed to know or experience anything, but
right.
It seems
so that is
that
that is the answer. So
but
the Rupa
isn't isn't it known by Chitta? So it's always a Dhamma, knowing Rupa.
It's always known by Chitta. It's always experienced by Chitta. So the Chitta is always Nama. But what is experienced? The Rupa that you mentioned, the visible object. So it is the reality now that doesn't experience anything.
Oh.
The sound that is heard now, it's always experienced by Chitta. The Chitta always experiences an object. But the sound that's heard now, it arises and falls away. Does that sound experience anything?
Probably not. Yeah.
Not probably, definitely not.
Yeah.
The sound cannot experience anything at all. So that's the answer that John is looking for. Any Rupa.
If the sound doesn't know it's being experienced, for example.
So that's why, as we discussed last time, there are 4 Nama Khandas and 1 Rupa Khanda. So the realities that are Rupa Khanda, they're the realities that don't experience anything, cannot experience anything.
But for us, every moment of experience is experiencing an object, right?
Not just for us at any moment in life. There's always the experiencing of an object, but we're trying to learn to distinguish between those realities that experience, like you've mentioned, the seeing, the hearing, the chittas, vijnana, and the cetasikas, as opposed to those realities that don't experience anything. Because if there's no firm understanding of the distinction between namas and rupas, there will always be confusion and misunderstanding and ideas of us and them and this and that. So this is what Ajahn is pointing to. First of all, before talking about intricate points, just understanding what are dhammas, and then what are dhammas that experience an object, and what are dhammas that don't experience anything. Just to get these main points firmly established.
And how do we know that for sure? Like, I mean, you look at a table and it doesn't appear to have any consciousness, but
because the table are just what is taken for a table are just different rupas arising and falling away, no matter whether they're ever experienced or not. There are just different elements, earth element and other elements arising in groups and falling away. Sometimes there may be the experiencing of hardness, for example, and sometimes not. But those realities, those elements just arise and fall away and never experience anything because they're rupas. Hardness, earth element, can never experience anything. But by conditions, sometimes there is the experiencing of hardness. Like now when touching the table, hardness is experienced, but the hardness doesn't experience anything. So hardness is a rupa. Rupas don't know, not interested, don't experience even for an instant. But still they're paramatta dhammas that arise and fall away. And there may be understanding of the heat or cold or hardness that appears now.
And so it's by just starting with the coarsest ones that, and experiencing it directly without just kind of knowing hardness and knowing seeing, that the understanding begins to refine itself, and then you can become more and more subtle.
Yes, and it's not I or you or anyone doing anything or selecting anything or starting here and going there. But as Ajahn mentioned, the points are very subtle. There has to be careful listening, careful considering, and from the outset, careful reflection on what are realities now, what are the realities which experience an object, and what are realities that don't experience an object, but not anything that I do or someone does. I think I slightly interrupted Ajahn, so I'll let her continue with her thread. I just wanted to give a pointer, that was all. Carry on, Ajahn.
Yeah. What did Buddha say again? Monk, listen carefully. I'm going to say. That's why the word can cover the truth when we just think about the word only, what is called or what is named, but the nature of it is there to be known, no matter what word we use. That's why the question about, is there the reality which experience the object? See, careful considering about the reality, about the nature of it, about the characteristic of that which is now appearing sometime, but no understanding of it. Just take the word about it, to think about it, try to understand it, but understand that very subtle truth has to be so very subtle too, because we are not talking about that which is there from moment to moment up till now. No thought about it, no understanding of the truth about it. That's why what are we hearing, considering now is just about that which is there, unknown, until it's known gradually, little by little. And that is the study of the truth of Dhamma that Buddha had realized or enlightened. That's why, to be truthful to the truth, there is reality which experiences the object. If there is no hearing about this reality at all, how can there be moment of careful thinking about the truth of that which is there from birth? There must be the reality which experiences the body, the object, but it's not known at all from birth up till now that it's there any moment. And the ultimate truth is so very deep, it just arises and falls away. Who can imagine just one reality appear at a time? But now so many things appear around. So how many moments of reality unknown? That's why I begin to understand the nature, the characteristic of that, because all words of the teaching just point to the truth of any moment, each moment right now. No matter it is moment of seeing, moment of thinking, no moment of liking or disliking. The truth is so close there, but it's not known. Without hearing carefully, consider carefully to understand, no matter what word is used, a reality which arises and experiences is there each moment, from moment to moment, never the same one. That which is conditioned to arise has a reason, so it falls away instantly, and there are conditions for, at the moment, experiencing the object. That's why it begins to understand what is there in life is taken for I or someone or things or this or that all the time because of ignorance, no understanding of the truth of the reality, which now arises and experiences the object, and the other arises just is hard or soft or taste or sound. But it does not experience anything, and it cannot experience at all. Nobody can change the truth. That's why this is Dhamma. It is Paramada Dhamma, and it's so deep, so it is Abhidhamma. If someone will say, I'm studying Dhamma, but not Abhidhamma, it's wrong. All dhammas are so subtle. Nobody can change it. It is Paramadadhamma, Abhidhamma. So now, is hardness a reality? Is it Dhamma? Is it Paramadadhamma? Is it Abhidhamma? If one says it is Dhamma, it's just not the word, but begin to understand the truth. It's not anything at all. It is that which has its own characteristic. It's conditioned to arise. Otherwise, it's not there to be known or now appearing. But no one knows the moment when it arises and falls away. That's why Buddha taught for 45 years to understand the truth, which is so very subtle. Pariyatti, firm confidence of the truth, to condition moment of directly understand what is there right now. See, it's not there yet. Right now, understanding the nature of each reality, but from hearing again and again and again, it let go ignorance, no understanding of the truth. And who knows, when there is ignorance, it conditions attachment because no understanding of the truth, that is not there anymore. That's why we learn to understand more about each reality in life, to understand the truth. It is a reality. It's gone. It cannot be taken for anything because it's gone. And the moment when it's gone, condition the next moment to arise, non-stop, very quickly, arising and falling away. So how can just one reality, a moment of that which is there, a reason, be known? Impossible. For example, right now, how many things are a thing, see, before it can be anything or one thing. So many moments of seeing what is there, unknown, until what appears is the nimitta, sign of that which is there. For example, seeing, just one moment of seeing, it cannot be known. So very short, and the object which is seen is also so very short. How can it be known? So what is the word of the Buddha? Whatever arises is known by nimitta. That's why begin to be nimitta of just one reality. Seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, hardness is hardness, taste is taste. Just the nimitta of a reality. That's why understanding the very subtle moment of what is there arising and falling away all the time, non-stop by conditions. Nobody can change the truth. It's there now. The previous moment, all gone. The last moment, whatever. And even right now, just one word, many moments. Because there is the in while we are talking and thinking and so on. This is so subtle. That's why it's the beginning of understanding the subtlety of all dhammas. No matter what, it does not appear as it is. And it cannot be imagined when it's just only one. See, nimitta of one. Even so, what is there appearing is the nimitta of one reality. For example, nimitta of seeing and nimitta of hearing. And nimitta of thinking, nimitta of what? Of that which arises and experience an object. So it's the beginning to understand the truth that all dhammas are anatta. If there is no understanding of dhamma, how can there be the understanding firm all dhamma? Before it can be all, it takes time to study, to be firm, confident of what is there, as no one at all, before it can be directly understand the truth of what is there appearing as nimitta. So understand nimitta, what is nimitta with our reality, can there be nimitta? But what is taken as something is nimitta of different realities. And seeing is there, arising and see that which appears, not one moment. By way of process, we know when it will begin to see. Before that, there's no seeing, and after seeing, there's no seeing. But the other reality arises one by one, after one and another. See, before seeing, is there a reality which arises and experience? And seeing is just one moment. Who can know the truth of it? That even the sign of seeing takes time for seeing, many moments to appear as seeing right now. And this is the subtle, so very subtle nature of any reality, unknown. And it's there, life to life, years and years, unknown, until the enlightenment of the Buddha. So all the words of truth out of his enlightenment. That's why we know that it is not just the word, but each word pointed to the truth of what is there right then. For example, seeing right now. We talk about seeing. So we learn that seeing cannot be moment before seeing. And seeing cannot be the moment after seeing in a process. See how deep it is. This is the way to let go ignorance, which is so very deeply accumulated years and years ago, to get less and less, little by little, so very little. That's why Panya has so many degrees, from hearing the 3 realms of the Arya Satya. See, it means that just only very little understanding cannot eradicate that which has been accumulated quite so long, beyond imagination, how long it's been accumulated, to cover up the truth right now, until the word of truth is heard and listened carefully. That is so very, very subtle. Not just the word, it's Dhamma or it's Rupa. I know that. It's impossible, because even the moment of saying it's Rupa, what is that? See, what is not known has to be known before wrong understanding, taking it, whatever is there for something all the time, be completely, absolutely, ultimately eradicated, stage by stage. So we know that no matter what word we are hearing right now, just pointed to that which is there now, to be known, not to be not to be forgotten. So this is the study of Dhamma, because now there is Dhamma, but it's not known as Dhamma. That's why I learn to understand it little by little about the truth of it. Dhamma is that which is real, arising and falling away. All sankhara, sabbe sankhara, anicca, dukkha, anatta. And the next one, all dhamma, not just sankhara, are anatta. So it's now the path, each moment of understanding, sammaditthi. No one there at all. Learn to understand the truth a little more, letting go ignorance about what is there in word. But the truth is that it's there to be understood, not just in word. It's there to be known stage by stage, from pariyati to patipatti to pativeda. See, without hearing the truth from the enlightened one, how can there be such understanding about what is there? What is understanding? It's not seeing. See, learn to understand little by little of the truth, which is so very deep. So there are many, many words in 45 years to be studied carefully, respectfully, at moment of understanding. It's so true. And this is Satya Dhamma. And at moment of enlightened Ariya Satya, that person has realized the truth, has eradicated ignorance and wrong understanding. Absolutely, ultimately, no conditions for the arising of ignorance and attachment, taking it for something, self, atta, as we thought. Consider how long it has been accumulated. Ignorance, attachment, wrong understanding, and right understanding at the level it can eradicate ultimately conditions for its arising because of understanding what is there. Gradually, from hearing, letting go the idea of I will do or I can do, or I am now so calm and so on. No understanding of that at all. Even right now. No understanding of what is there, but begin to hear, to consider the subtlety of the truth of each reality. That's why learn to have firm confidence of the two different kinds of realities. The reality which arises and experience non-stop, years and years ago. And this from birth on and on and on and on until death and on, new life again. Because new life is just like now, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Only the object is different all the time, from moment to moment, from life to life. Is this true? The point of studying each word of the truth is to understand it which is so close. Ignorance is there now. Attachment is there now. No one knows. It's impossible for intellect understanding to realize it. But it's there to be known. That's why there can be more condition to hear more, consider more, understanding the subtlety of anatta. Even right now, what is there? No matter, no need to do anything. It's there already, but it's not known. So only that which is there can condition moment of understanding the nature of anatta. It's there by conditions. No one can do anything because actually any reality cannot be taken for someone or something at all. What appears in the world, no matter what line, each moment, is the nimitta of the reality, each reality which arises and falls away in split seconds of split second. So now, nimitta of so many things around seem, but in truth, what is the world? Only one reality appears. It shows that no one, only that, and that cannot be taken for anything. So from considering what is there which has no nimitta, say, and it agrees, it conforms with what the Buddha said. Because of understanding the truth, not just take the word as the teaching of the Buddha, but of the truth. And this is the only way to let go of attachment and ignorance very gradually, from moment to moment, stage by stage, to begin to eliminate the idea of self, gradually, little by little, depending on the stage of understanding. Is it true? Satya Barami, when understand the truth of what we just talked about. Whether it's true, is it true? Is it so true? Is it only the truth of what is there as it is? When Panya is there, Satya Parami begins to be so firm little by little, to let go what we take for something or I or seeing or whatever.
Break the paramis refer to the qualities that are developed with right understanding of realities, which become purified at moments of enlightenment. And Satya, as we have mentioned when talking about Paramata Satya or Satyajnana, refers to the truth or truthfulness. So Satya Parami is the quality of truthfulness that develops with the understanding of realities. And of course, it's not the conventional idea of truthfulness when we say what is correct and not what is incorrect or a lie, but it's referring to being the quality of truthfulness to what is life at this very moment. So the truth is just seeing which sees, no one that sees. It's just what is visible that is seen. So as understanding develops, there is more and more Satya Parami, more and more understanding of the truth at this very moment. And I'd like to just see if anyone else has any questions they'd like to ask today. Anne or Alberto or Zita or Tsao, anyone?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Anne. Yes.
I find myself thinking that I don't quite understand when thinking becomes wise consideration. Gradual is the word that comes to mind, but it'd be hard to have wise consideration without thinking before thinking. I guess that's my question, thinking and wise consideration. I guess the difference is that wise consideration will be with Panya. And your average, garden variety thinking will not, even if it's thinking about the Dhamma.
Right. So, of course, thinking about the birds and the bees is just thinking with ignorance and attachment. Even thinking about namas and rupas, or thinking about classifications and thinkings about details, or thinking whilst reading a sutta, may or may not be with any wise considering. So when Ajahn was stressing at the outset about the need to listen carefully and pointing how subtle dharmas are, actually she was pointing to how there has to be careful, wise considering about what life is now, what is read now, because we all read the Satipatthana Sutta, but is there any wise considering, like when we read about awareness of the body, is there any wise considering about the meaning, what is meant? Is the body a Paramata Dhamma? Can there be awareness and understanding of body? Or what can be known now? What is real now? So this is where the Satchaparami comes in. So thinking can be kusala or akusala. Almost all the day it's akusala. And like you said, even in a Dhamma discussion like here, thinking with lobha, thinking with ignorance is there most of the time. But the wise considering are the precious moments of thinking with understanding about what is the truth now.
And I think it's important to add that it's not possible and also not necessary to know the moments of truly wise consideration from the moments of thinking, just thinking, that will not be kusala. And because they're just conditioned by the developed understanding already, and also they could arise intermingled. So it's really not something that we can expect to directly know, oh, this is wise consideration and this is just thinking, normal thinking, even though the subject is the Dhamma, as you say. And we just do the best we can. And we've been fortunate enough to have drawn to our attention the probability that there's ideas of wanting to develop, to gain, to have more kusala, that sort of thing, to understand better. These kind of ideas are going to be lurking there all the time, on and off also. Can't be helped. That's just the way it is. That's why it's such a long process.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I keep coming back to this one from time to time, every time, which is why it's a good idea to discuss it, hear about it time after time.
Let's see if Ajahn would like to add more on this topic as well.
Yes, because we're talking about the reality which is now arising, see, and experience and object. So now, at moment of seeing, just talk about seeing before thinking. So now, there is seeing for sure, and it's not that which is seen. So there must be the reality which sees, begin to understand the subtlety of that which is just arises and experience the object. Who can know it? Because the object is seen all the time. If we didn't talk about it, no understanding of a reality, which is so very powerful. Without it, there's no world, nothing at all. Nothing can appear without that which experiences that object to appear. That's why we forget again about understand the truth of that which is now a reality which arises and experience. Before seeing is there, see, the difference between life and no life, like the tree and a cat, see? The difference is the reality which is there, experiences the object, it's life. That's why at moment of hearing, we just learn that sound is not that which hears, only that. But the truth of the reality which experiences is not thought about, right? So there are 6 doorways. At moment of no seeing, no hearing, no smelling, no tasting, no touching, there is thinking. See, the reality which thinks no one at all. It arises to experience an object, depending on what object is there thought about. That's why it thinks about that which is seen, heard, and so on, the shape and form of such and such, taken for the road or the cat or the snake or the water or whatever is there all the time, never lost. I mean that it is conditioned to arise and fall away all the time, non-stop. So at moment of no seeing, no hearing, no smelling, no tasting, no touching, it's that thinking, see, the same reality, the reality which arises and experience an object. That's why there are 6 doorways, no matter in what world, to experience what is there as the world of heaven or hell or what. There are moments of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. So begin to understand moment of thinking as beginning to understand the moment of seeing. It experiences different objects. Sorry. So now we are thinking, right? Not seeing, but the reality which arises and experience.
I'm hearing another voice in the background here.
Yeah, sorry. Just a moment.
It's okay.
So now thinking, see, while
Yeah.
they not the same time, but no one there at all. Just learn to understand what is there as no one. This is the point, because the truth can be known stage by stage to let go. Wrong understanding. Nothing is last. Whatever arises falls away. Who can change that? So no one at all arises and falls away. Only different realities. Firm confidence of no one, because no matter what we have learned or talked about deeper and deeper, they are just to understand Dhamma or Dhamma, they are Dhamma, whatever is here. Anatta, no one. That's why the moment of beginning to understand thinking, at moment of thinking, just like moment of seeing right now, different by doorways. At moment trying to think so hard about seeing, can the object of seeing appear? Impossible, see. It can only be seen by a reality which is conditioned by the ideas and that which impinge on it, and reality, which is the experience. Would have thought about the details, the subtlety of whatever is there, to gradually let go the idea of self, little by little, unknowingly. Who knows now? The more we heard about what is there, little by little, it works its way. It develops the firm confidence of no one gradually, little by little. So we learn about that which is aware, our reality. That's why we learn about the truth of each word, about the truth of different realities. Ignorance can never and cannot understand anything as it is at all. Now, seeing arises and falls away. This is true. It's so subtle. It can be known, but not today. But by understanding more about Dhamma, Anatta, gradually develops. So life goes on as usual with a little more understanding that what can be known is not that we try to know, but what is there already, even right now. Thinking what is there, a reality which experiences the object by conditions. Why it arises to think such this thought or idea? Why not the other? By condition. So understand the truth, what is there by conditions. It can have more metta, friendliness to whatever is there. Otherwise, we think that we get angry with that person, but actually no one. just one's own accumulation. See, learn to understand the truth of no self, gradually, little by little, of that which is there already by conditions. So now, thinking is not seeing, it's not hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. That's all. It doesn't need eye base, ear base, tongue base, or nose base, and body base at all. It can think. That's why begin to understand what is said about different kinds of that which arises and experience the object in different planes too. Some plane, there is no material or rupa at all, see? Possible by conditions. And some plane, there's no reality which arises as experience, but there is the rupa which is conditioned by Dhamma. See, by conditions, one begin to understand how great wisdom, very, very great, very, very high, very, very subtle, the more when there is the understanding of the truth. So the truth, the witness of the truth, is the understanding of the truth. That is so true. So now no matter what word we use, it pointed to reality. For example, seeing, conditioned to think about seeing, not about hearing or other thing. And this is the way life is, all by conditions. No matter happy moment, unpleasant moment, or whatever, understanding moment, attaching moment, and so on. Is it true? And this is to understand how much confidence of the truth, to let go gradually ignorance, so reality can show up, to be known, to panya only, right understanding. Because even right now, at moment when there's no seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or thinking, but there has to be that which is conditioned to arise, to be live, experience the object, but the unknown object by conditions. What is there in life? Buddha thought about it because of his great wisdom beyond anyone in the universes. So just is true, and that is such a parami, firm confidence of the truth, little by little, to condition a sudden moment by condition, aware of a reality with understanding, which now is not understood. For example, hardness. It has to be known. It's there, arises and falls away. And that which experience the object as that which is seen or heard different moment by different conditions, but they cannot, its character cannot be changed, arises to experience, and the object is different, no matter by what doorway it can experience by conditions, see? And this is the way to let go ignorance, understanding the word, understanding nature, understand the truth of each reality, a little more, a little more. For example, sati, so we heard a lot. But what is it? See, without understanding it, there can never be a moment of beginning to attend to the reality, which is not the chief of experiencing, not the citta, but that which experiences the same object, and it has its own characteristic. It likes that which appear to it and to which citta, which experience it too. But what is known can be known, just one characteristic at a time, by conditions, see? And this is the way to let go ignorance and no understanding of that which appear now. So the path which will condition a little more understanding, is so very subtle too. No other way at all. Just pickle. Just listen carefully. I'm going to say the word of the Buddha. Just that has to be considered carefully. Why it has to be listened carefully. Because it's so deep and so subtle. It's there, unknown. It's taken for something, but not as it is. The whole world is like that. Any moment with ignorance. And how can it appear to right understanding of the truth until it's the degree of it can eradicate the accumulated of wrong understanding, eons and eons ago, never to arise again. It's now beginning to understand the truth gradually until it conditions another stage, directly understand the truth that we have heard, exactly the same. And the witness to understand that moment is the witness of the truth, that is so true as it is. That's why there is Pariyatti, and then Patipatti, and then Pativeda.
And Drake, as Ajahn has said, the Buddha himself placed great emphasis on the importance of carefully considering what one has heard about the teaching. We may be inclined to think that once we know what the practice is, that we can go ahead and do it. But that kind of approach does not take account of the way the Buddha taught the Dhamma to be and the way he taught its development to be. Perhaps the easiest way to refer to this in terms of suttas is the sutta that gives the 4 factors for the growth of wisdom or the attainment of stream entry. We've mentioned them before, but I just bring them into this discussion because they're so relevant. The first is association with the good friend in Dhamma, the wise person. The second is hearing from that person the true Dhamma. The third is the careful or wise consideration that Anne mentioned in her question. And the fourth is practice in accordance with the Dhamma. Now that third factor of wise consideration, that is the same as what Ajahn is referring to by listen carefully, because it applies at the time of hearing the Dhamma correctly explained. It's not sufficient, obviously, just to hear it, but it has to be carefully considered. And this careful consideration applies both at the time of hearing and subsequently. And it is each of these 4 factors conditions the one that follows it. Obviously, there cannot be the hearing of the true Dhamma without having the good fortune to meet someone who understands the Dhamma as it is, and thus one is able to hear the true Dhamma. And hearing that true Dhamma conditions the wise or careful considering, because one has obviously previously had an interest in the Dhamma and developed understanding to a certain degree. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the interest in this lifetime. And it is the careful consideration that conditions the 4th factor, which, although it has the word practice in it, it doesn't mean doing something. It means the actual arising of moments of awareness and understanding. And nothing further is needed in the sense of input from the individual. this is the point that I think is perhaps most difficult to understand when one comes from a background of practice or meditation or whatever, that the understanding arises by conditions like any other factor, wholesome or unwholesome. But because it is so relatively undeveloped, then its arising is not as frequent as we might wish it to be. And there's no effort on our part that can make it arise any more quickly than it will do by conditions. In fact, that directed effort is likely to impede its arising because we are following our own idea of what are the conditions for the arising of awareness and understanding. And throughout the suttas, there's so many references. There are so many references to the benefit of discussing Dhamma with other people who share the right understanding, of asking questions, of reflecting on what has been heard. And that reflecting is not a deliberate act of reflecting. It's naturally occurring reflection that happens due to one's interest in the subject matter.
And just one point, when the third factor that Johnson referred to is in English, it's usually translated as practice, but actually it's a mistranslation because the patipati, in fact, means reaching the object. So it actually is the fourth factor, because actually it's referring to reaching the object, in other words, the understanding of the object that appears. But so quickly, people jump to the idea of I or someone practicing or understanding directly. But actually, as we know, no one to do anything, no practice to be followed. So it's just referring to the direct understanding of the object that appears now. The fourth factor conditioned by the right, very careful consideration about the truths. I think it links a little bit with the topic you brought up a couple of weeks or so ago about tendencies and different habits and different accumulations. So the wise consideration is by habit or tendency. So different people listen to the same words, and it just depends on whether there is the habit or the tendency to consider carefully. No one who can do anything, no one who can decide to listen carefully or wisely attend. But if the habit has been accumulated and developed, there is more and more wise consideration, and that tendency, the habit of panya arising, is conditioned by the asya, by the latent tendency that is accumulated with each citta, ready to condition the understanding when it's time. Like now.
Thank you. That's a good addition, Sarah. This has been a useful discussion.
We don't have much time left. Anything that anyone else would like to bring up, Azita or Alberto or Hang or anyone?
I have something. It's to do with, well, for a while I've been thinking about what is the difference between annihilation and nibbana. And I haven't really wanted to talk about it. But just this morning, it came to me that the difference is that nibbana is real, but annihilation is not. Would that be a correct comment about it? I mean, people have annihilation views that at the end of this particular life, that's it, gone, nothing. But in reality, that's not strictly true, because there's birth consciousness following the death consciousness. So that view of annihilation is incorrect, and it's not real. But for
and it's actually a view of self, of utter too. It's an idea that there is a self, and at the end of this life, it's the end of the self, the end of life. So it's not actually any understanding of dhammas at all. So what is translated as the eternalist and the annihilationism views are all referring to different ideas of self, a self that carries on and continues on, an idea of permanence, or the annihilationism, the idea there is a self and then it's all gone at the end of the life, nothing more at all. So when there are wrong understandings of self, all these views come, and then there are some which are partly this and partly that. So when we read the Brahmajala Sutta about all the large number of wrong views, they all come back to different variations of the theme, variations of wrong views about the self continuing. And we think, oh, there's no idea that I or you continuing, but what about the idea of a table? It's still the idea of something there, something lasting from moment to moment, or the idea that when something is gone, that it's totally destroyed and finished. So nothing to do with nibbana at all, which is the unconditioned reality that is only understood when the conditioned realities have been fully understood.
And with the idea of annihilation, there's no particular understanding about the conditioned nature of things. So the annihilationist doesn't understand that the arising of consciousness is conditioned, for example, and will continue to arise as long as there are conditions for its arising. Whereas when it comes to nibbana, the conditions for the continued arising of consciousness have ceased, because craving has been eliminated. Craving is what keeps turning the wheel around. Craving and ignorance have both been fully eradicated. There are no more kusala and akusala jittas creating new karma. And so, by conditions, there is not the possibility of juti citta being followed by a patisati citta. And it just ceases to, the conditions for the continuation of consciousness cease to be there. So there's not a cutting off, for example, of what would otherwise be a stream of consciousness.
Okay, yes, that's a very good explanation. So thank you, John. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
We read many examples of the implications that teachers who taught about Ucceda Ditti and annihilation belief would then have the idea it doesn't matter what good or bad is done, because it's the end of life, it's all gone anyway. And so it actually implies no understanding of karma and other conditions too. So it's an example of how it is the understanding of the truth and understanding the nature of conditioned realities that leads to the development of more good and sees the danger of harmful behavior too. Let's just a few minutes. Let's see if Ajahn would
Thank
like
you
to
very
add
much.
anything further.
Can anyone stop this moment to arise after the previous moment?
No one can, Ajahn.
As long as there are conditions, even the death moment has fallen away. The conditions are there in the moment of death to condition next moment to arise. Exactly the same right now. And there has to be seeing again, hearing again, on and on, like this life. So it's just the change of what is the object of the next life. Even the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking by conditions. But life still go on, non-stop, as long as there are conditions for whatever arises right now. And that is anantara pajjaya of each citta. As long as there are still conditions for what to arise is there. As soon as it has fallen away, there are conditions for next moment to rise, to be new life. That's all. The end of this personality, never to be this person again at all, disappear. See? So it just once upon a time is this life. Only once upon a time, and next life, another once upon a time. No Ashita after death.
In one way, I think that's good, Ajahn.
To be new person, see again the same pleasant feeling and pleasant feeling again and again, endlessly. No one, but it's just Dhamma. So the moment you think that you like, it's a reality, see? All are realities, all Dhammas are anatta. No matter we talk about this or that, it conditions the understanding of the truth that it's a Dhamma, all Dhammas, anatta. Firmer and firmer. No me, no you, no thing, only reality arises and falls away, and ignorance covers up the truth. No understanding of this moment, it's conditioned to arise and fall away. So I think it's time now. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
Sawadee ka, Ajahn.
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์